Hey everybody, John the Other here, obviously. And this video is actually an answer to a number of questions and concerns that were raised in the comments thread of my last video, yesterday's video, talking about chaperones. Now, there were some concerns which I dealt with in the comments thread that were, I don't think, legitimate, but there are many concerns and questions and criticisms that are legitimate that I will try to address here in a as reasonable a way as I can. One of the first and most obvious ones is, if you use a female chaperone to protect yourself from false allegations, spurious accusations, frivolously made claims about sexual misconduct or what have you, aren't you then inviting that exact type of accusation from the chaperone herself? Well, yes, that's certainly a very real danger, which is why this is not something that you can do lightly. You can't just pick somebody who you think is a nice person and designate them the chaperone. Oh yeah, you're just here to keep an eye on things. You have to spend a long time and a very detailed process vetting your chaperone. One of the people in the comments thread yesterday said, well, this is a very interesting idea, and suggested that their own sister would make a good chaperone. And I think that's a really good idea, with a caveat. If you are in a family that has a divorce going on, even if it's not the parents of the brother and sister who are going to back each other up in this manner, divorce does weird things to family, and allegiances change, and there's all kinds of very odd interfamilial warfare that goes on. I think a divorce throws an unknown wild card into that mix that maybe makes a sister not a viable candidate to be your chaperone. But the other question is, does that sister that you're talking about, the guy who suggested that his sister would make a good chaperone, what's her attitude to MGTOW? Because if there's any criticism, if there's any yes but, and then the little undermining criticisms, well, that's the red flag, that's the warning sign. We see lots of sort of female MRAs who say that, well, they really agree with MGTOW, but, and then they go in and they submarine the whole thing with their little undermining efforts. Well, that's a person that you can't trust as a chaperone, because you're talking about somebody who has to have your back in the face of a criminal allegation, the nature of which is that you are tried and convicted in this arena of opinion, not in the arena of an actual court of law. So you got to choose very, very carefully and have a checklist that you maintain. That's, I hope, one of the concerns addressed. Number two is, how can you just be lugging a chaperone around with you everywhere you go every time you have to talk to a strange woman? Well, obviously you can't. That's not how this works. That would be really ridiculous. And for the people who have offered that, I understand how silly that looks, but just think about it a little bit more. Obviously, this isn't a person who escorts me all the way through my life all the time. This is somebody who I occasionally bring to a social event or a social meeting as just a safety in special circumstances. So that's how I do it. It's not that I have a person constantly in my pocket all the time. It's that if there's an event where there might be a hazard, then I'll see if I can get a little protection. And if I can't, well, then I bail out of that event. Now, it's not like somebody else commented in the comments thread and said, well, if somebody just happens to be into private space with you, well, that doesn't happen. People don't just happen to create private spaces with me. I don't know how that can be even thought about as if it's realistic. If you are a conscious and aware practitioner or guy on a MGTOW path, you don't get into private spaces with strange women because of the hazard. So hopefully those questions are suitably answered. You understand it's not like I have a chaperone in my pocket all the time. This is for special and particular events where I think I need one. Now, another group of people have been saying that my whole approach of using a chaperone is totally a waste of time and foolish and nonsense because GoPro or voice recorder. Well, I use a GoPro and a voice recorder as well, and certainly a GoPro and a voice recorder will provide you evidence in the face of a spuriously made accusation of some sort of impropriety or sexual misconduct, but that's kind of great for a court, right? Not so great in this arena of public opinion, where even in the face of overwhelming evidence to the contrary, you are trashed. You're guilty. A woman said so, so therefore you're guilty. Evidence doesn't matter. So having a witness there really prevents that from happening. It's not that the witness needs to come forward and say, no, that person is lying. It's that you were never in a two-person alone space. There was always a third person. It prevents there ever being an accusation. Hopefully, this has answered some of those questions. And again, I will be talking more about this. How do you go about doing this? What kind of a checklist do you do? What are your steps in vetting? How do you make this work in your life? It's very individualistic because it depends on your family relationships. It depends on the dynamic of your social circle and so on. And I hope this has been at least somewhat useful. So now, final thoughts here. There are going to be people, a lot of them I expect, pointing at this video and calling me a paranoid lunatic, a maniac, tinfoil hat wearing, etc. and so on. Or saying, this is completely and totally over-the-top, extremist, ridiculous. And I agree with you. It is. This is ridiculous. This entire video is ridiculous. But it's ridiculous because we are now in a social and legal climate, in Canada where I live, in the US, UK, that is a ridiculous situation. That you are basically under threat at all times, as a man, of some kind of sexual, criminal, thought crime, bad behavior, whatever. And when that spuriously, frivolously, casually made accusation is thrown, it's not thrown with the intention, I know I will drop the hammer of doom on this guy's life and ruin him forever. A woman making some frivolous sexual misconduct allegation doesn't have this concept of your doom, the termination of your public life, the termination of your career, the dissolution of your family. To them, it's just it's just a few words, blah, 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 right? They don't live in the world where they can be destroyed by a few words. You do. And that's the ridiculous, absurd situation that we are in. And that's why this set of ridiculous and over-the-top and extremist response in the form of this video and everything that I've been talking about in a ridiculous world has become realistic and necessary. So everybody going, you're a grown-ass man who needs a chaperone. Sit down and shut up. Honestly. Don't be a ding-dong. And obviously, thanks very much for watching and have a lovely, lovely day.